All right, let's jump right into this explainer and head to the wild waters of Scotland. We're going to explore a mysterious island that honestly looks like it was built by some lost, ancient civilization. Just imagine sailing across the North Atlantic, right? And suddenly you spot thousands of perfectly shaped stone columns rising straight out of the sea. And at the base of these columns, a massive gaping dark cave where the ocean crashes against geometric walls, creating this wild, haunting echo. Well, this is Fingal's Cave. It's easily one of the most spectacular natural wonders in Scotland, a place that looks totally artificial, but was actually crafted entirely by the brutal, untamed forces of nature.
When you look at the sheer perfection of these columns, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around the fact that no human architect designed them. I mean, how exactly does nature build a cathedral out of solid stone? The answer actually lies in a violent, ancient recipe. It's an incredible story of how fire, water, and immense stretches of time all combined to craft Fingal's Cave on the remote, uninhabited Isle of Staffa.
So we start by looking at Staffa itself. It's an isolated island in the Inner Hebrides, right off the west coast of the Isle of Mull. Now, it's just a tiny speck of land, only about a kilometer long and maybe 300 meters wide. And yet its geological landscape is just off the charts. The island's Norse name literally translates to Pillar Island, and for good reason, because its cliffs are completely covered with these unbelievable geometric basalt columns. Some are standing perfectly vertical, while others curve and lean in these really bizarre patterns. And even though no humans live there today, for centuries, these strange rocks have just completely captivated anyone who sees them.
Which brings us to part one of our story, the first architect, fire.
To really understand how this magnificent structure was built, we have to meet that first brutal natural architect, which is volcanic fire. You see, the story of Fingal's Cave doesn't actually begin with a cave at all. It begins deep underground. Exactly 65 million years ago, this part of the North Atlantic was an incredibly violent, totally unrecognizable landscape. It was completely dominated by massive volcanic eruptions, pumping out enormous quantities of molten basaltic lava. This lava flowed out and spread thickly across the terrain, basically turning the whole area into a blazing sea of fire. Eventually, of course, the eruption stopped, and that thick lava began to slowly cool and solidify.
And this is where we get to the crucial point, a brilliant geological process called columnar jointing. This right here is what's responsible for the seemingly artificial hexagonal basalt columns that cover the island today. As that incredibly thick lava cooled down, it began to shrink, and as it contracted, deep cracks developed all the way through the solidifying rock. On Staffa, these cracks formed an incredibly regular, spectacular pattern of columns, with a whole lot of them being almost perfectly hexagonal.
It's fascinating because nature followed a remarkably precise recipe to build the foundation of our stone cathedral. Step 1. Volcanoes erupt, laying down the material. Step 2. The lava slowly cools and shrinks over time. And Step 3. That shrinking causes the rock to fracture into those towering hexagonal columns. So first came the volcanoes, then the lava, and then the cooling rock. But the thing is, at this point 65 million years ago, there was still no cave. The walls were up, sure, but the interior hadn't been excavated yet.
So let's look at part 2, the second architect, water.
Once the fire subsided and the rock finally cooled, the actual excavation required a relentless new architect. Enter the Atlantic Ocean. For millions of years, the ocean basically acted as an enormous, natural erosion machine. You see, those beautiful basalt columns contain natural joints and weak points. So during powerful storms, the ocean waves repeatedly struck the volcanic cliffs of Staffa with just unimaginable force. Water forced its way into the cracks, loosening pieces of basalt and breaking them right off. The sea then used those broken rocks as literal battering rams, chucking them back against the cliffs. Through this relentless, pounding process, the ocean carved out an astonishing 19 distinct sea caves on Staffa. And Fingal's Cave? It is absolutely the crown jewel of them all.
And this incredible process resulted in a cave of truly breathtaking scale. Get this, the cavern is approximately 83 meters long, 23 meters high, and about 75 meters deep. That's massive. The arched entrance rises majestically right out of the sea beneath this gigantic wall of basalt. Inside, the dark water flows right beneath the geometric columns, and it places these towering cathedral-like dimensions right alongside the local residents. Because while humans definitely don't live here, seabirds like puffins, black gilliamats, and eiders actually call this massive cavern and the surrounding cliffs home.
Moving on to part 3, myths, music, and discovery.
Once humans actually set eyes on Staffa, its cultural impact became just as massive as its geological one.
I mean, the rocks at Fingal's cave look so perfectly engineered that ancient people straight up couldn't believe it was natural. Ancient Celtic mythology actually claimed the cave was the handiwork of giant warriors. The cave's name itself is closely tied to Fionn MacCumhail, who you might know better from English language traditions as the legendary Finn McCool. When you're looking at these dramatic, perfectly regular cliffs that honestly look like a gateway to another world, it's incredibly easy to see why early visitors imagined giants hauling these massive stone pillars into place.
Interestingly enough, this perfectly clears up a really common misconception. Fingal's cave is constantly compared to the Giant's Causeway over in Northern Ireland, and it makes sense. Both share the exact same mythological folklore about giants, both are roughly 60 to 65 million years old, and both feature that stunning columnar basalt. But here's the kicker. They were created by entirely different, disconnected volcanic eruptions. They were never physically joined together. It's just that nature happened to follow the exact same brilliant recipe in two completely different locations.
Now, for a long time, Staffa was just a remote, little-known island. But we can actually track the explosion of human interest starting around 1772. That's when the Scottish botanist Joseph Banks visited and brought this extraordinary landscape to the wider public's attention. That discovery sparked a huge wave of tourism, including a very famous visit by composer Felix Mendelssohn in 1829. Eventually, recognizing how profoundly important the site is, the National Trust for Scotland took over the island's care in 1986 to ensure it's preserved for future generations.
And following Joseph Banks's discovery, artists, writers, and scientists just started flocking there. They'd make this incredibly difficult, treacherous journey across the Atlantic just to see the cave in person. Look at this staggering list of 19th century VIPs. Queen Victoria, William Wordsworth, Jules Verne, John Keats. It really proves that this remote Scottish cave had transformed into an absolute must-see destination. It basically became a pilgrimage site for the greatest minds of the era who were obsessed with experiencing the raw, untamed power of nature firsthand.
But here's the thing. Fingal's cave isn't just famous for how it looks, it's famous for how it sounds. When composer Felix Mendelssohn visited back in 1829, he realized the cave essentially acts as a massive musical instrument. When the waves roll into that deep cavern, the noise reverberates against the geometric walls, creating these extraordinary natural acoustics. The ocean provided the rhythm, and the basalt walls provided the resonance. Mendelssohn was so deeply moved by this haunting natural echo that it inspired him to compose the Hebrides Overture, which forever linked the cave to the world of classical music.
Now, let's head into part 4, a living, changing ecosystem.
Because beyond the towering myths in the classical music, we have to remember that Staffa is not just an ancient frozen relic. It is a thriving, dynamic ecosystem right now, today. While the brutal Atlantic winds, rain, and chaotic seas definitely prevent humans from living there permanently, the surrounding waters are fiercely alive. Visitors heading out to the Hebrides around Staffa frequently run into a rich diversity of marine species. We're talking encounters with dolphins, whales, and even massive basking sharks. In a way, the very harshness of the environment that keeps human developers away is exactly what provides a beautifully protected sanctuary for all this incredible marine life.
And it is so vital to take away that the ocean's ancient work is never truly finished. We are literally watching geology happen in real time. The exact same violent forces that started carving the cave 65 million years ago, they are still actively reshaping it today. Storm waves are still relentlessly attacking those slippery basalt columns. Water is still forcing its way into the cracks, and rare rockfalls still happen as the Atlantic slowly but continuously alters the coastline. Nature is still firmly holding the chisel.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to ponder. Fingal's cave is this perfect reminder that some of Earth's greatest monuments were never designed by human hands at all. They were built by fire, water, and the immense, incredible patience of time. It really makes you wonder about the sheer, untamed architectural genius of our planet. What other geological masterpieces are hiding out there in the wild, just waiting for the ocean to teach them how to sing? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Staffa's Cathedral of Basalt. Keep exploring.